Bonjour et très bienvenue à notre réunion du midi. Nous avons plusieurs annonces pour vous avant de passer à vos questions. Et on commence par l'agenda de la réunion du collège de demain qui se déroule à Strasbourg ainsi que les événements de presse associés. Donc, demain, les commissaires adopteront le paquet d'automne du semestre européen 2026. La vice-présidente exécutive Minzato et le commissaire Dombrovskis vous le présenteront dans la salle de presse du Parlement européen à Strasbourg à l'issue de la réunion du collège. Et ceci sera suivi du regroupement par pays en background et uniquement en ligne sur WebEx pour les journalistes accrédités à 16h30. Avant cela, nous organiserons dès 14h30 ici, dans notre salle de presse au Berlaymont, un briefing technique off the record pour vous aider à préparer vos articles. Demain aussi, les commissaires échangeront sur un cadre stratégique pour une bioéconomie européenne compétitive et durable. Alors, ce cadre sera présenté au point VIP par la vice-présidente exécutive Ribera et la commissaire Roswald à 11h jeudi. Donc, pas demain, pas mercredi, mais jeudi ici au Berlaymont. Et ce point de presse sera suivi d'un briefing technique off the record sur ce même sujet. Donc, comme d'habitude, vous allez recevoir la confirmation de ces événements ainsi que tous les détails par nos canaux habituels. Donc, voici pour l'agenda du collège et les événements de presse associés. Et maintenant, je voudrais demander à Eva de me rejoindre avec une annonce relative à la journée internationale pour l'élimination de la violence à l'égard des femmes, ce qui est malheureusement encore une réalité très tragique de notre société. Eva.
Merci, Paula. Good afternoon, everybody. You've probably noticed that we are wearing the orange scarves today. That's because ahead of tomorrow's International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, we want to reiterate a message that is never repeated often enough. Gender-based violence is unacceptable. Anywhere, every time, always. The European Union renews its determination to end all forms of violence against girls and women, and we ensure that every person can live without fear and harm. As in previous years, we are joining the UN campaign Orange the World, as you can see, but also late tonight in the evening, the Commission building, Berlaymont, will be illuminated in orange, which is a global symbol of the commitment to eliminate violence against women. The European Commission and High Representative has issued a statement that is calling to end all forms of violence against women, and you can read the statement now online.
Merci, Eva. Et permettez-moi maintenant de vous rappeler qu'une réunion du Conseil Affaires étrangères Commerce a lieu aujourd'hui à Bruxelles. Et le commissaire Šefčovič y représente la Commission. Et parmi les sujets à l'agenda figurent l'état d'avancement des négociations commerciales en cours, ainsi que nos relations commerciales avec les États-Unis et la Chine. Et une conférence de presse avec le commissaire Šefčovič aura lieu plus tard dans la journée, vers 15h45. Je vous invite donc à réserver vos questions relatives au commerce pour cette conférence de presse dédiée. And now to our groups of visitors that we would like to very much welcome. You are 4 experts from Tirana's Europe House project. And we'd like to welcome you here, wish you a very interesting, fruitful visit while in Brussels and here in our press room. A very, very warm welcome to you. And finally, to conclude our announcements, a brief point on logistics, just for your own planning. This Friday this week, our midday will exceptionally start at 11 for internal organizational reasons. So we'll organize it for around 45 minutes at 11 instead of 12. And with this, we are ready to take your questions. Would like to start, Jorge?
Hello, Paula. I have several questions about the talks in Geneva yesterday. I know that there was a representative of the European Commission present there on the ground. We heard from Secretary Marco Rubio. He said that there's a separate track of discussions with Europeans and NATO allies to discuss the issues that involve Europeans. Can you tell us what these issues are? Have you received an understanding from the Americans? What's this separate track of negotiations about and what's inside this track? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jorge. First of all, let me reiterate that a strong and coordinated European engagement has yielded constructive progress in the negotiations for a Ukraine peace plan over the past hours and yesterday. It included a solid European presence during the discussions with Ukraine and with the US in Geneva, with participation notably from the representatives of the EU and the Commission. And as we made clear, and I refer you also to the statement by President von der Leyen yesterday on this very same subject, where the President made clear that the centrality of the European Union in securing a peace for Ukraine, lasting and just peace for Ukraine, must be fully reflected in any credible plan. And that's why we very much welcome also the Ukraine and US joint statement that was put forward yesterday after the discussions. And we see that a lot of work remains to be done. We are ready to do our share. And in this sense also, let me refer to an extraordinary meeting of the EU leaders that is taking place this morning. It started around 10:30 in hybrid format in Angola, which President of the Council, Antonio Costa, called, and it's assessing the next steps, which will include a meeting tomorrow of the coalition of the willing. And so the European engagement will continue on all fronts to secure a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. Jorge, you have a follow-up?
Yes. Regarding the statement that yesterday was released by the President von der Leyen, she said very clearly there can be no limitations on Ukrainian armed forces. Is this the red line for you? Are you not going to accept any cap in the peace deal regarding the armed forces, or do you have some flexibility after the Geneva talks? Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. So you mentioned one of the elements, indeed, that the President von der Leyen also mentioned in her statement. Now, she referred to some key elements or some main elements which are necessary for a just and lasting peace and for Ukraine's sovereignty. She mentioned explicitly three main elements. These are not the only ones, but these are the three that she pointed out. First, borders cannot be changed by force, so we're talking about territorial integrity. Second, no limitations to Ukrainian armed forces, which would leave Ukraine vulnerable to future attack, thereby also undermining European security. President von der Leyen also mentioned the centrality of the European Union in securing peace for Ukraine must be fully reflected. And last but certainly not least, and of a big importance to President von der Leyen personally, is also the return of each and every abducted child, which needs indeed to be returned. So you mentioned one element. President von der Leyen mentioned more, and this is not exhaustive. She just put out what are key elements, and of course in line with the position of Ukraine, because as President von der Leyen also said a number of times and reiterated again over the past days, nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. Yes, Nicolas.
Thank you, Paula. Nicholas Komai for Euractiv. Can you elaborate what role the Commission specifically played in the European counter-proposal and who specifically the authors of that proposal were?
Listen, first, we are not speaking about counter-proposals. What matters in the end is what is the content of this peace plan, and that it can effectively lead to a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. And that's where we are playing a constructive role in the discussions with and next to Ukraine and with the US. We won't go into details of these discussions, but as said, some of the principles that President von der Leyen outlined yesterday frame already what are some key principles that would need to be reflected and in any peace plan. Stefan.
Thank you. On this principle you mentioned, are they all supported by all member states, or is it the position of the President of the Commission? And then on the reparation loan, I understand that in the original Russian or American plan there are other ideas what to do with this frozen assets. Where are you on this point on the reparation loan? And you mentioned this coalition of the willing. Where will it take place? Thank you.
So, there was really a lot of convergence between the EU representatives in terms of what are key principles that need to be respected in any peace plan, and reflected also in the statement by the President, by President von der Leyen yesterday. On the reparations loan, as I said on Friday, the work continues on our side as was envisaged, and this becomes even more urgent now also against this background. And finally, on the coalition of the willing, the understanding is that this will be a video conference to take place tomorrow. Yeah.
Thank you, Paula. So, Prime Minister Orbán rejected all the options outlined in the options paper sent by President von der Leyen. Will the work continue despite this opposition? And Slovakia also raised concerns on the issue of financing Ukraine. How will the Commission take into the consideration this criticism coming from Hungary and Slovakia? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. As you know, we always strive and work towards consensus. We always strive towards solutions that have the support of all 27 member states. That's how we are stronger. That's how we have a united stance in a subject as key as the peace in Ukraine and as key as Europe's security. So ideally we'd like to have and be able to count with the support of the 27 member states, but we do see that sometimes it is not possible. We'll try to make the very best out of it still and see that this does not become an obstacle to advancing on such a critical subject. Yes.
Jarno Hartikainen, Helsingin Sanomat. Still on the frozen assets, because it was not mentioned in yesterday in von der Leyen's statement. So would it be correct to interpret that this is not among the key, among the red lines of the European Union, and could be used as a bargaining chip in the negotiations? Thank you.
Thank you, Arno. If I look into the statement by President von der Leyen, she said, let me highlight 3 of the main elements. So as I said at the beginning, this is not exhaustive. She mentioned 3 key elements. It doesn't mean that that there are not other elements that may also be key for the discussions and for the eventual agreement. Yes.
Yeah, Gerardo from Politico. Still a follow-up on the frozen asset. It's true that what von der Leyen says is just, mentioning these 3 points, but if we have a look to what we shouldn't call counter-proposal, at point 14 it says that Ukraine will be fully reconstructed and compensated thanks to frozen assets that will remain frozen until Russia compensates damage to Ukraine. So isn't just a way to win this battle by putting these Russian frozen assets straight to the not counter proposal, but the peace plan, whatever going to be? So do you think that the peace plan would actually push forward the Russian frozen assets in favor of what's the EU position?
Well, as said, without going into the details of ongoing discussions, what also President von der Leyen has been saying for a long time is that it is critical that the aggressor, Russia, pays for the destruction that it has been doing. And there are not many ways of doing it, and that's why, we put forward options, also following the European Council request last October, and we continue the work on that precise basis. And in view of the European Council now in December. Other questions? Yes, Maria.
Thank you, Maria Psara with FC Newspaper. A question on the deadline, because it was very tight, the deadline that President Trump has put to President Zelensky. Yesterday, Rubio said that it can be flexible. What's your information about it? Should we wait a peace plan till the end of this week? Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I'll not be able to comment on any deadlines, also which were not put forward by us. What I can confirm is that we are working very, very intensively in making sure that we have a basis that is workable, that is fair, and that can lead to a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. That's what we are committed to, along with other EU representatives and along with Ukraine. And I think we can move on. Other topics? No other topic? Let me see. How does it look like here online? And I browse because there are quite some questions online, but I saw a question there. Go ahead.
Peter Haag, Politico. It's maybe a question for Thomas. I assume this morning there was a meeting between EVP Virkkunen and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Can you disclose what was being discussed in the meeting? And you've said before many times here at the stage that EU tech rules and things like digital services tax are not up for negotiating with the US. Is this still standing after this meeting?
Thank you, Peter. On your final remark, yes, this is absolutely still the case. Let me start by confirming indeed that today EVP Virkkunen is meeting both Howard Lutnick, so US Secretary for Commerce, but also Trade Representative Jameson Greer. The meeting was still ongoing when we started Midday, so I'll be very careful in what I'm saying. Of course, they discussed the digital components of the joint EU-US statement. And more generally, EVP Virkkunen had the intention to discuss with her American counterparts the resilience of our semiconductor supply chain, digital infrastructure more broadly, 5G, 6G, but also innovation in AI. And then EVP Virkkunen also had the intention to present to our US counterparts the digital omnibus that was adopted last week. So these are the main point of discussions on her agenda. I'll debrief you after the meeting once it's done.
Thank you. Yes, Jano.
Thank you. Thomas, on the last point that you mentioned, Virkkunen presented the omnibus package to US counterparts. Why?
So, EVP Virkkunen is meeting two of her American counterparts, so she's in charge of digital, obviously. We adopted a major package that will have an impact not only on EU companies, but also on US companies. So this is the appropriate moment, as we have two guests in the House, of course, to also explain what we're doing on our side, why we did the digital omnibus. I will not elaborate, but we did it quite extensively over the past weeks here from this podium. So it's an intention to discuss and to present what we're doing indeed in the different fields that were touched upon in the digital omnibus.
Thank you. Other questions to Thomas? Let me see. Oliver Grimm.
Hi. Hello. Oliver Grimm with the Austrian newspaper Die Presse and La Matinale Européenne. On the DSA, since Thomas, I have you on the podium, can you give us an update where we are with the denazification of Grok? And a second, possibly related question, X introduced this feature that you could actually see the place of origin or the place where somebody who's posting there, where an account was set up, is seen. That reveals several interesting insights. For example, many very pro-Russian and very patriotically American accounts are based in Senegal or Southeast Asia and so forth. Does the Commission already have an analysis on this function? Because I have read that X introduced this feature because of European legislation or because of European pressure. Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver. Let me start by saying that this has nothing to do with the meeting that is currently ongoing. So this is not the purpose of the meeting. On your second point on the feature, yes, we're looking into it, definitely. But this is the case for all companies. When they change some of their features, we look into them and to see how this is DSA compliant or not. Now, on Grok and your comments, so on the recent output from Grok and the Holocaust denial, of course, this is shocking. This is appalling. This has no place online. We don't call this freedom of expression. This has a clear word in the EU. This is hate speech, and we don't want that type of content online. So let us be very clear about that. When it comes to Grok, this is not the first time it happens. We are already in touch with X when it comes to outputs that was generated by X's chatbot. We have sent a request for information, and we will take it from there.
Other questions to Thomas? Let me see online. If these, I see 4 hands. If they are not for Thomas, could you please put them down? Christian Spielmann.
Oui, vous me voyez, vous m'entendez?
Oui, Christian. Aujourd'hui, oui.
Très bien. En fait, je voudrais continuer sur la fonctionnalité de X. Thomas, est-ce que cette fonctionnalité, c'est quelque chose que quand même vous demandiez dans la législation? Et est-ce que vous êtes surpris par l'ampleur qu'a pris la découverte et la suppression de milliers de comptes dont on a découvert que c'était des bots, alors qu'ils étaient très implantés, que c'était des pro-russes, des pro-MAGA, des pro-complotistes, tout ce qu'on veut, et qu'on a découvert qu'ils n'étaient pas du tout localisés là où ils devaient l'être. Est-ce que c'est une surprise pour vous? Est-ce que c'est une bonne chose pour vous qu'il y ait un ménage qui soit fait dans cette plateforme qui est quand même la plus utilisée par les journalistes? Merci.
Merci Christian. Je pense que le DSA est assez clair que chaque grande plateforme en ligne doit remettre de l'ordre dans sa maison. C'est bien la raison pour laquelle on a le DSA qui a été mis en place. Alors, lorsqu'il s'agit de bots et de faux comptes, ils n'ont pas leur place en ligne. Justement, c'est trompeur pour certains de nos utilisateurs. Donc non, un bot n'a pas de place en ligne et il faut qu'il y ait énormément de transparence de la part des plateformes lorsqu'ils suppriment un compte ou lorsqu'ils prennent des décisions de modération de contenu qui touchent le compte de nos utilisateurs. Donc le DSA est très clair là-dessus. Alors bien entendu que nos discussions avec X continuent, tout comme avec toutes les autres très grandes plateformes. Les discussions sur certains aspects sont plus productives que d'autres, mais je ne vais pas depuis ce podium aujourd'hui élaborer plus sur une enquête qui est en cours.
Oliver, je te donne encore une follow-up.
Merci. Une petite question sur Grok et en fait ces émanations antisémites. Tu as dit que c'est hate speech et il n'y a pas de place pour cela en Europe. En fait, moi, si je sors physiquement sur un espace public en Europe, si je commence à louer Hitler et raconter des mensonges sur la Shoah, je serai arrêté immédiatement. Tu as dit que, en fait, vous avez envoyé une demande d'information à Aix. N'y a-t-il pas une sorte de procédure d'urgence, puisque entre-temps, on ne sait pas si Grok continue à, en fait, propager l'antisémitisme, des mensonges sur le Holocauste. Donc, pourquoi ne pas déclencher une sorte quelconque d'urgence? Merci.
Merci Oliver. Laisse-moi d'abord rappeler qu'effectivement le contenu antisémite qui est sorti et la négation de l'Holocauste, c'est une attaque contre l'histoire de l'Union européenne, c'est une attaque contre l'histoire de l'Europe et ce sont effectivement des contenus qui n'ont absolument pas leur place en ligne. Soyons très clairs là-dessus. Le DSA, on a pris des mesures, on a envoyé une demande d'information, on prend la chose extrêmement au sérieux ici depuis Bruxelles. En termes de procédure d'urgence que tu évoques, elle a été prise. Il y a des mesures qui ont été prises à l'échelon national. C'est la raison pour laquelle on a aussi des autorités nationales qui sont compétentes pour prendre également des mesures lorsqu'elles sont appropriées au niveau national. La France en a pris très récemment. Donc voilà, le travail continue, mais laisse-moi juste être encore une nouvelle fois depuis ce podium très clair. Ce contenu-là n'a pas sa place en Europe.
Merci d'être très clair, Thomas. D'autres questions pour Thomas? Non. D'autres sujets? Oui. Nicolas.
Thank you so much, Nicholas Comar, for your active. Just a quick question for clarification on the forthcoming bioeconomy strategy. This is either scheduled tomorrow for release tomorrow or for Thursday, where EVP Ribera has a press conference scheduled. If you could clarify. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicolas. So, indeed, it is meant for discussion tomorrow at the college. The reason why it will be formally adopted in what we call it internal finalization procedure on Thursday is also in view of managing the press events, and this is an event that will, as I mentioned at the very beginning, take place here in Brussels. We know that not all journalists are travelling to Strasbourg, so there will be a written finalisation on Thursday, and the presentation, the formal presentation, will then take place on Thursday. But I confirm it's part of tomorrow's agenda of the college. Other questions? Let me go online and take those who are trying to also come in. Nacho Alarcón.
Hi, can you hear me? All right, I have a follow-up on the loan to Ukraine. So just to know, so the timeline is the same that in the past. So the idea is to discuss it back in the council in December. I would like to know if you plan to have any communication with the United States regarding the idea, or if you will continue with the work as in the past, and you will not consult with the Americans on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Nacho. I mean, to the extent that the subject may come up in the discussions now in the context of the peace deal, I wouldn't exclude that this could also be discussed with the American counterparts. But in any case, the work will continue as was foreseen in view of the European Council in December. Other questions? Marta Vidal. Marta?
Hi, sorry. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question on fisheries. I wanted to know whether the Commission has endorsed or been consulted on the decision announced today by Spain to give an additional 13 fishing days before the end of the year to the vessels working in the Mediterranean. Thank you.
I look at colleagues. Maciej, you will need to get back. Okay. Marta, we need to look into this and get back to you as soon as we can after the midday. Okay? Thank you for your understanding. Mose, I understand you have a question on COP30.
Yes, thank you very much. As you know, the climate change conference COP30, it ended on Saturday. And as far as I know, there was no agreement on phasing out fossil fuels. It was hardly mentioned in any documents, I think. And still, I noticed that the European Commission issued on Saturday a press release saying that EU secures an agreement in a global response to keep the 1.5 limit within reach. I just wonder, what is that based? Because, as I said, I haven't seen an agreement in the conclusions mentioning that. On the contrary, it's likely, that global heating will continue and reach perhaps 2.6% by 2100 because no agreement was reached on phasing out or transitioning away from fossil fuels. Thank you.
Mose, that allows us indeed to set our position after the conclusion of this important COP30 negotiations. Anna Kaiser.
Okay, Mose, you saw our press release from the weekend, and you're referring to the press release. So it is, first of all, it's important to state, amidst all the reporting from this COP, including your outlet as well, that what this COP particularly showed is that we do have a functioning multilateral climate governance system in place. It showed that the Paris process is alive. It is slower than necessary, and it is slower than we would like it to be. But there was an agreement at COP30. And it showed respect for science, it showed the collective responsibility for joint action, and it showed solidarity in support of adoption for the most vulnerable. The EU aimed for more ambition, and this is what you refer to as well. This is very clear. But what we did manage to secure with our partners was an agreement that recognizes the need to keep the 1.5 Celsius degrees limit of global average temperature within reach. What is also important for me to say from here is that the European Union played an absolutely crucial role to have any agreement, any deal at all. And the main work obviously was done by our negotiating team in Belém, but at the same time President von der Leyen reached out in the margins of G20 while COP was ongoing as well in the final meters to secure that there will be any kind of agreement going past the finishing line.
Okay. So, Anna Kaiser, I will need to interrupt you because we learn that the President is just doing a doorstep now. So, Jonathan, if you can, we use the opportunity to broadcast it here. Yes, you see.
English. We just concluded a meeting of the 27 European leaders with the President of the European Commission, and we took stock of the latest developments regarding efforts to achieve peace for Ukraine. There is a new momentum in peace negotiations. Yesterday's meeting in Geneva between the United States, Ukraine, the European Union institutions and European representatives marked significant progress. The United States and Ukraine informed us that the discussions were constructive and that progress was achieved on several issues. We welcome this step forward, and some issues remain to be resolved, but the direction is positive. And we commend the efforts of Presidents Zelensky and Trump and their teams. It is also clear that the issues that concern directly the European Union, such as sanctions, enlargement, or immobilized assets, require the full involvement and decision by the European Union. We stand ready to continue supporting this process by working closely together with the European Union and in close coordination with Ukraine, the United States and NATO. What matters now is that we move forward as partners, united by our shared goal. Stop this war, stop killing people, and stop this war of aggression against Ukraine and ensure a just and lasting peace for Ukrainian people. The European Union is committed to continue providing President Zelensky with all the support he needs: diplomatic support, military support, economic support. This concerns, in particular, financial support to Ukraine. As you remember, we committed to deliver on it in October, and we will deliver at the December European Council. In conclusion, let me stress, peace cannot be a temporary truce. It must be a lasting solution. Ukraine has chosen Europe, and Europe will stand by Ukraine. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Good morning. An efficient and coordinated European engagement, as well as a strong European presence in Geneva, has allowed us to make good progress in the negotiations for just and lasting peace in Ukraine. While work remains to be done, there is now a solid basis for moving forward. As we do, we must remain united and keep placing Ukraine's best interest at the center of our efforts. This is about the security of our entire continent, now and in future. And today's meeting in Luanda reaffirmed that we are united in our support of Ukraine. These are our core European principles moving forward. Ukraine's territory and sovereignty must be respected. Only Ukraine, as a sovereign country, can make decisions regarding its armed forces. The choice of their destiny is in their own hands. I also want to emphasize Europe's centrality in the country's future. We will engage further tomorrow with our partners from the Coalition of the Willing. And finally, today I raised again the plight of the abducted and missing Ukrainian children. Each and every one of them must come home. I was glad to see this topic resonated with the leaders. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It does happen to us also that we have some spontaneous developments. So we did not know about this doorstep when we started the midday, but are glad that it worked. and especially I'm glad that I don't need to go back in anything of what I have said at the very beginning. The President said it herself, so you have it from President von der Leyen directly in terms of what are the key takeaways and next steps. So, Anna Kaiser, you were, I think you had concluded or not? If Sorry for interrupting you. You were making.
I was getting into a groove, and that completely destroyed my mojo now. But anyway, we were on COP and how it was not. The outcome was not as ambitious as we would have wanted it to be. Mose, you asked about the fossil fuels phase out. This is precisely something that was short of what we would have wanted to see in the final text. But again, it is important to underline that a deal is still better than no deal at all. And obviously, given the current context, which also refers back to what interrupted this midday in the first place, we have to put value to the process that gathers over 190 parties to recognise this issue and to have the commitment to take this process forward. It is not going as fast as we would like to see, but we will continue to play a central role, a very ambitious role, to push for ambition and to push for this process to take hopefully a bigger step forward at next COP, which the preparations have already started. They were launched in the final press conference with the Presidency Troika.
Thank you very much, Anna Kaiser. I use the opportunity to see if there are any further questions to Anna Kaiser. Yes, Nikolaus.
Thank you so much. Two questions. Paula, the first one is to you. Given that Anna Kaiser mentioned the fossil fuel exit roadmap, the President could be seen opining against the need for such a fossil fuel roadmap, saying that it's not about the energy sources, it's about emissions that have to go down. Can you say whether the President preempted sort of this discussion at COP? And the second question would be to you, Anna Kaiser. Given that the EU signed up to the implementation accelerator, which foresees a ratcheting up of NDCs ahead of future COPs, will the Commission table a proposal to re-up the NDC and launch this process?
Thank you, Nikolaus. And let me be very clear. There's no contradiction whatsoever. The President said that we're tackling emissions. And indeed, that's what we're doing. Because if you look at fossil fuels are the most emission-intensive sources of energy. So by tackling emissions, what we're doing is effectively bringing down the share of fossil fuels in the energy mix, which, by the way, we have been doing successfully. If you look at our trajectory towards 2030, our targets 2030, we're well on track to meet our 2030 greenhouse gas emission reductions target. We now have a national determined contribution also for 2040 in view of climate neutrality in 2050. And our legislation is about bringing down emissions. So it's in that sense that President von der Leyen referred to tackling emissions. And as she also said, we remain fully committed to the transition away from fossil fuels. Let there be no doubt about that.
On the Global Implementation Accelerator, which was one of the follow-up processes to the COP, the work in those in that work stream, meaning the Global Implementation Accelerator, will be led now by the Troika of the current presidency as well as the previous, Azerbaijan, and the following, Turkey. And we have, you asked about the EU NDC, we have a very, very clear pathway to climate neutrality by 2050. So we are willing and ready, obviously, to assist in this work, depending on how the Troika, these presidencies, how they take this work now forward at this accelerator. All of this was agreed on Saturday, so I suppose that most of the delegations have and the negotiators have just returned home and starting to think of how now put forward to concrete steps. So we will be there, obviously, depending on the role that we are assigned to. But as regards our own NDC, it's a very clear one. Negotiations for 2040 are starting, and we have a very, as Paula said, we have a very, very clear pathway to climate neutrality.
Thank you. Gerardo.
Yeah, just to follow up on this fossil fuel statement. At the same time, there are some pieces of legislation that target directly or indirectly fossil fuel. Renewable Energy Directive that actually dates back. Like, I mean, it's even before the Green Deal. So is it fair to say that there are pieces of legislation that aim at targeting fossil fuels rather than just reducing emissions?
Let's put it positively. We are encouraging the non-fossil sources of energy, such and in particular renewables. And you mentioned the legislation on renewables. We also could mention the legislation and targets on energy efficiency. So we can also formulate positively what we are engaged in, which is indeed in promoting a bigger and bigger share of non-fossil fuels in the energy mix. Other questions to Anna Kaiser? No. Then I have a patient, Odile, has been raising her hand since the beginning. Odile.
Yes. I want to move my question to the... Can you hear me?
We can hear and see you, Odile. It's perfect.
Okay. Yes. I'm going to say it in English because, you know, my sources are in English. I mean, the focus is on Africa at the moment, and with the pledge of 15.5 billion for clean energy for Africa, along with the Global Citizen pledge, considering that 600 million Africans lack access to electricity, and on the other hand, that 60% of the best solar resources are in Africa. Now, clarification. Would the African countries that have been, been selected by Team Europe, will they be able to get their solar panels directly from China, because China is the largest producer of solar panels, or would it be via Team Europe that would be done? I don't know, some clarifications. Thank you.
Thank you, Odile. And you may have noticed that the subject of energy, the subject of access to electricity in Africa has been a key topic of discussion in the context of the G20 meeting in South Africa over the past days. And now also in Luanda, in the context of the EU-African Union summit. And again, allow me to refer to a statement by President von der Leyen, where she has notably reiterated our commitment, Europe's commitment, to partner with developing countries in making sure that precisely we reduce this figure, this really striking and very negative figure of having 600 million people in Africa which still do not have access to electricity. And this is why, as part of our Global Gateway initiative, we have launched a campaign with President von der Leyen and President Ramaphosa called Scaling Up Renewables in Africa. And there was a pledging event on Friday which reached, and that's very good news, 15.5 billion euro for clean, for investments in clean energy in Africa. So we're really working together with Africa, with the African countries, to make sure, on the one hand, that the number of people not having access to such a basic service like energy is considerably reduced, and to making sure also that there are investments in clean energy technologies. And again, this has been another subject of discussion and very much present in the G20, and again referred to in the context of the sessions in the EU-Africa Union Summit, which is really about allowing access to the technologies which are needed for a clean transition, and ideally also locally, creating local value chains where countries in Africa are not totally dependent on exports from abroad. Any other questions on any other topics? No. Then we bring to an end our midday, which was a bit of a different midday today. Thank you for your participation. Wish you a very good afternoon.
On n'a pas